Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BikeSocial. I'm Michael, and this is the 2021 Ducati Monster. Now, the Monster originated about in 1993, so it's 28 years ago with the M900, and folklore would suggest that it's the model that saved Ducati, certainly out of that financially sticky situation they found themselves in the early 90s. Their creditors, thankfully, allowed them to produce the M900 back in the day, and it was based very much on a bike that was on a film poster, apparently. Anyway, 350,000 bikes have sold since then, and it's been a resurgence for the model. There's been all sorts of different variations, all sorts of different numbers, all the way up to recent times with the 821, the 1200. But this, new for 2021, doesn't have a number. It's simply known as the Ducati Monster. It uses the same twin-cylinder engine from the Supersport 950. You'll find it in the Multistrada 950 and the Hypermotard as well. Of course, it's Euro 5 friendly for this year. It makes about 110 horsepower, and the bike itself, 10,350 pounds. So what we're going to do today in this video, we're going to have a little look around it. I'll tell you all about the details of the bike, and then we're going to ride it, and I'll let you know how I think about it too. All right, stick around. Well, here it is. Here's the Monster. As I said, there's no numbers this time. I mean, arguably, you could call it the Monster 950. I think that's probably what we could call it. You know, it's got the 937cc engine out of the other bikes in the range. This is the Euro 5 version. Being an L twin, it doesn't have, you know, it's a 90-degree twin-cylinder engine that we've seen in several other models. This is the Euro 5 version of it. And it's ever so narrow down this sort of the body of the bike, especially with this, they call it the waist, where the seat meets the tank. It's ever so thin. And that, when you're on it and you're riding it, it makes it it seem very small and nimble. I say small, and you know, this is considered a middleweight naked bike. But it had a bigger brother because, you know, we used to have the 1200 Monster. And its rivals, of course, in this middleweight category, you've got MT-09, and then it's got its brother, the MT-10. You've got probably Street Triple RS, the 765 Triple, and it's got a bigger brother now, the 1200. KTM 890 Duke, again, it's got the 1290 Duke. But this is the new model for 2021, and other than the Euro 5 937 engine, it's sort of the two big things that it brings to the party are weight. So it's down to 188, that's wet weight, 188 wet, it's ever so lightweight. Again, it fits in with that category. There are others that are about the same weight, and it loses about 18 kilos from the outgoing 821 Monster, which is pretty remarkable, really, considering the engineers have had to make it Euro 5 friendly, which is, I think, you know, it adds weight. But the second biggest thing about it is, and any Ducatisti or anyone who's interested in monsters will notice that there is no trellis frame. I wasn't that passionate about it anyway. I don't really mind, it doesn't bother me that much, but I'm certain there are people out there that it does worry. And they've replaced it with this aluminium version. So engine bolts to that, and then you've got the subframe as well. Like I say, some people will have issues with it, some people might not. What the trellis frame did is it kind of focused your eye on this. And it does leave it quite exposed because it's dark and it's black, and it looks like a lot of the other engine components, and it means that it's really open. So you've got a lot of wires, leads. Look at this. You don't expect that kind of stuff with like premium Ducati quality, do you? And it exposes all this under here, and it means that you've got a lot of ground clearance here. So much so that you can almost crawl through there. I think that it needs, as fitted as standard, some kind of fairing here, like a belly pan, which you can buy as an official accessory, £180 or something like that. But also with this bike, you've got very, very high pegs. I mean, the original Monster, the concept was around using a sort of a road-going engine with a sporty frame. I mean, this is the frame from the Panigales, or very, very similar. So you've got road engine, sporty frame, like the old, you know, the originals. But you've also got quite a sporty riding position, and it's, I mean, you're never going to do 150 miles at a time in on these kind of bikes, but it does mean that your seat to peg position is cramped is not the right word, but it's certainly quite tight, and it means that your thighs are almost parallel to the concrete, to the ground. What you do get is Ducati quality with the sort of the premiumness, the look, the feel of the bike is certainly premium. It does look, you know, well put together. There's, all right, you got a few exposed wires, but it's a naked bike, what you expect. But you do get like Brembo master cylinder Brembo, these them 4.32 calipers on big twin discs, 320mm discs. Your forks are not adjustable. Your shock at the rear is for preload. You get these twin over and under silencers on here. Again, you can buy the Terminioni aftermarket. You can buy just the silencers, or you can buy the whole system. And it all kind of attaches to these fairly garish looking pillion seats. There is a plus model, the Monster Plus. It's I think the difference there is £200 or £300, not massive, but you get a pillion seat cover and a little fly screen over the instrument panel. Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3s on this, so good tyres, very, very good tyres. Let me turn the ignition on, and I can demonstrate two things that I really like about this model. Where are we, right or left? Right, look at that! How cool are those indicators? I mean, you can tell the brand's owned by Audi with those, they're like cars. And then you've got the headlight. Again, traditionally Monsters were oval headlights, and that's nearly oval. Again, looks really nice, daytime running light. So it's a 4.3-inch TFT, fairly small. And then you've got several different options here. So if we go into the setting menu, you can select your rider mode, sport, touring and urban. And then you can choose the different parameters. So if you go into engine, and it shows you an engine, you can have it on high power, medium power, low power. Traction control settings, ABS settings, wheelie control, and then quick shifter, you can turn that on or off. You can change the modes on the fly. You just press and hold the mode button down here where my left thumb is. You then got to close the throttle. It tells you to close the throttle as well. And of course, being a twin cylinder, it sounds pretty thumpy and bumpy and lumpy. Do you want to hear it? Of course you do. Ha-ha! Ready? 14-litre tank, 188 kilograms, 825mm seat. You can buy a taller seat, and then you can buy a shorter seat, and then you can go a bit further and get the shorter seat, and then the lowering, I think it lowers the suspension, so it's a kit that you can buy separately. Okay, let's go and have a little ride, and I'll come back to you with some thoughts of how to get on, all right? See you in a bit. Up until now, we'd got away with beating the weather, but I might have to keep this brief. Look, the Monster, in terms of appearance, might not be to everyone's taste. The people that are traditional with their opinions on what a Monster should look like, or those who prefer the trellis frame. But equally, there is the new breed, the new riders, or those who are kind of coming back into it, who might not worry about things like that. In which case, there's some really, really nice touches to this bike. And you know, for a Ducati, you expect premium quality. You've got things like this really nice light, just the way the Ducati badge sits in there. And there's some beautiful components on this bike. Brembos are really sort of, really good spec for this level of bike. The Pirellis, again, same thing. I played around with a lot of the settings, like traction control settings, for example, and never found an issue really with grip or with traction, particularly with diving into the front. It's quite a sporty position. You don't feel hunched over the front, but it promotes you to sit further forwards. And that, I think, is reflected in the reward of the ride, because you feel a bit more athletic with it as well. And it feels very, very nimble. It's fast to turn. We talked earlier on about how light it is, and it definitely feels that when you're shuffling around at no speed, but also approaching a corner or coming out of a corner. It definitely feels like you've got more control over it that way. It does feel very, very nicely balanced. On the motorway this morning, I had a rucksack on. It wasn't particularly heavy, but it felt a bit wayward, so there's limited weather protection, but you're going to get that with a naked bike anyway. We talked earlier about the lack of numbers in the Monster range now, and this is the only Monster. And if you weren't particularly interested in the scrambler part of the Ducati brand, then this is your entry-level bike. And at nearly a litre capacity, and with a plus £10,000 price tag, it's pretty steep in terms of trying to get into that Ducati brand. I touched on some of the fine components earlier. I do like the DRL, I do like the indicators. I do like the seating position. The cockpit's very, very open. We talked earlier on about the peg position. Like I said, it's a bit sporty. It does promote that kind of, you are kind of folded up a little bit. I'm 6 foot tall, 14 stone, got quite a long inside leg, but dare I say it was uncomfortable? Not really. In terms of economy, you're looking around about anywhere between 50, 55 mpg, 14 litre tank, and you're probably going to be filling up every 120, 130 miles. Brakes, brilliant actually, really, really good. The Brembos grip very, very well. It's not the top spec Brembo, but they're really, really good spec. There's M4.32, and for a bike of this size, of this weight, they do a brilliant job. I think it's a lot better to ride than it is to look at. I've already talked about this sort of this big open space and how exposed everything is. It's a lot sportier than it looks, and you can, of course, you can play around with those riding modes, and you can make it as sporty as you want, or you can tame it down a little bit if you've got a bit of, if you're worried about traction or if it's a rainy day. So the twin cylinder engine, again, to be quite particular, it's an L twin, it's a 90-degree twin. It's got a lot of character. It's typically sort of burbly and a bit raucous and a bit bumpy down low, sub 3,000 RPM. But what's good about this actually is you've got a red line that's way, way up there, 10,000 or more RPM. And when you're riding it and you're not thinking about it, you flick around between 5 and 8, and you get to about 8,000, you think, that's the top end of it, and it sounds like it's the top end of its revs, and you want a bit, you want to feed it another gear, but actually you've still got another, 2,000 or 3,000 RPM to play with, and you can make it a lot sportier in terms of its performance. It's got quite a good character, almost like split personality in a way. You can dawdle about and bumble about in the towns and keep it down low and nice and easy, but if you wanted to let loose, then it's got some go in there. 110 brake horsepower. I think it's 93 newton meters of torque. And the gearbox quick shifter up and down, mega, really, really nice. There have been occasions on this test when I've been really, really super impressed with the gearbox. The bike's only done about 260 miles when I picked it up, and we've probably done 250 or so since then. So it's just kind of, it's bedding in, but the gearbox is really, really slick. On occasions, you go through the gears and you can barely feel it changing gear. It's really smooth. And the same on the downshift as well. And you've got that auto blipper, so you get the downshift and you've already got that rum where it's matching the revs. So mechanically, really sound. Lovely engine, lovely gearbox. Seating position's nice, steering's light. It's very, very nimble. In terms of performance, riding performance and riding reward, it's really good. It's worth the test ride. But people are going to look at it and think, oh, well, it's missing a bit here, and it's not quite as nice looking as I want it to be. It's in the eye of the beholder, after all. So I will have a full review at BikeSocial.co.uk. Thanks for joining me. Hope you've enjoyed it. And any questions, let me know. See you next time. Cheers. So I'll just keep walking around and pointing at stuff. All right. That might have been perfect timing. Dom, you just have to mind out the way, there's a car. Keep rolling. All of a sudden, the smallest road in Northamptonshire turns into the M1.